Tales of Estolia by Sashina Kerfman. Volume 1. The Promise of Zacharias. Part 7. Catalyst of Change. Chapter 10. Seclusion.
The disaster in Nico's office, my future office, led to the strangest and most offhand prophecy I ever read about in all my time as keeper. But when I saw the finished result, I knew with certainty that my uncle's vision was as influenced by deity as any blessing might be. Could he have predicted the actual character of that massive boulder, or that I would be on hand at its discovery and recognize its worth? Orion Octavian Zakarian. Capitulo 90.
Caris got to her feet at Zeb's urging. His expression was thoughtful. He looked more at peace than he had up until this moment. Something deeply personal took place during the time his hands were on her head, and he spoke in his native language. Personal and peaceful. She took the arm he proffered and they descended on the back side of the dais towards yet another set of double doors. Those were also held open for them. On the other side of the doors was a larger foyer with the same tiles. Several doors and hallways led off in many directions. They walked towards the only set of double doors. When they reached them, they were opened and Caris gasped in delight at the sight that met her eyes. In front of them was a wall of glass, and on the other side of the glass was a garden, with beautiful trees climbing into the sunlight festooned with large pinkish-white blooms. A meandering pond wandered around the garden with numerous large fish swimming lazily within. Inside the seclusion suite to their left was a seating area where one could admire the beautiful courtyard from inside. To the right was a large half-moon-shaped table that looked like it could seat 6. Beyond a small seating area to the left was a lustrous tapestry-like wall hanging fringed in gold, with elaborate designs in purple, gold and green. It was held back by a thick golden velvet rope. On the other side was an enormous bed. She could see a bathroom just beyond the bed. The glass wall facing onto the natural courtyard continued uninterrupted from the small sitting room to the bedroom. Zeb's voice was quiet when he said,
"I think, my dear, the best plan right now is for the two of us to have a nap, get some sleep. It has been a very long day for us."
He led her into the bedchamber, handed her a long silky white nightgown, and asked,
"Do you wish to use the facilities first?"
She nodded and took the nightgown from him. When she was finished taking a shower, she felt curiously vulnerable stepping out of the bathroom wearing only a nightgown. Zeb came up to her as she stepped out of the bathroom and handed her a glass of golden sparkling wine. Holding his own glass up, he said,
"To our alliance. May we make something truly wonderful out of it."
She raised her glass to his toast, and then sipped the wine, stopping to savor the delightful flavor. He topped her wine off and then stepped into the bathroom for his own shower. She sipped at the wine a little longer before moving to the bed and slipping under the covers on the side that was already turned down. She felt awkward, knowing she was going to sleep with Zeb. He probably knew her reputation for promiscuity. What he could not know was that it was all a sham. For just a moment, she allowed her memory to flow back to the 2 years after her mother died. Her father understood money and high finance, but was lousy at parenting. She asked to move into an apartment of her own once she was 18. She thought he was secretly grateful for her taking herself out of his home. Shortly after she moved into the spacious apartment in the Carpathia building, she invited Charles to live with her. Rumors were rife on the internet about their relationship, especially when a few photographs were leaked by Charles. In retrospect, she was not sure what she hoped to get out of the sham relationship. Charles had his own motives and she knew he benefited from their time together. Nobody in his repressive family circle suspected his interest was in men. Her father told her that she would be written out of his will if she were to marry Charles, or any other man without his approval. She had a few uncomfortable conversations with him, but for the most part, so long as she did not marry Charles, her father ignored her. She had hoped to explain the situation to any man she became seriously interested in, if that ever happened. Once her father's plans for her were made known to her, she had been fighting against the clock to remain single and not become pregnant. Marriage to Sloane, or single motherhood were both disastrous. Zeb was wearing chocolate brown pajamas, When he left the bathroom, he crossed the room to where his glass was resting and took a sip of the wine, before pouring more wine in the glass. He carried both his glass and the bottle of wine over to his side of the bed.
A little bit more?
He asked, proffering the bottle of wine. She extended her empty glass to him, and he filled it with the last of the wine. She watched as he went to the thick tapestry wall hanging, and untied the velvet rope. Once released, the tapestry closed the bedchamber off from the rest of the suite. He moved over to the floor-to-ceiling window and pulled another sash, bringing down similar wall hangings to cover the windows. The bedchamber was thrown into darkness with only the light from the bathroom shining into the bedroom. When Zeb slipped into the bed, Karis was not sure what he was planning. Did he really mean sleep, or did he mean to go about consummating their alliance now?
It will take a couple of days to get adjusted to this time zone,
he said. Then, after a pause, he asked,
May I hold you, Karis?
She scooted closer to him and into his arms, her head pillowed on his shoulder. She could hear his heart beating rapidly, which told her more than anything else that he was not nearly as relaxed as he tried to appear.
I am looking forward to introducing you to my family. It is important to me they get to know the real you, rather than the caricature that has been bandied about online.
She set her hand on his chest, feeling his heart thumping against her hand.
Zeb,
she whispered. He looked at her, and whatever he saw in her eyes must have told him something. He tilted her chin upward and leaned over to kiss her. He pulled back slightly to look at her in the dim light of the bedchamber, and then kissed her again, brushing his tongue lightly over her bottom lip, encouraging a response from her. His mouth left hers, and moved to her neck and the back of her ear before whispering.
May I take your nightgown off?
She could say no, but his warm body against hers was heating her core. She sat up and allowed him to remove the nightgown. The touch of his mouth on the crown of one breast had her calling out in pleasure. She ran her hands over his back, slipping them under the waistband of his pajamas, caressing his buttocks, enjoying the way his skin twitched and muscles tensed in response. He cupped her intimately, his touch eliciting a rush of heated desire. She felt as though her nerve endings were being dipped in pure sensation. She pushed the pajamas down, encouraging him to be as naked as she already was. He needed no further invitation, and in moments the warmth of his skin was pressed against her, the heat of his arousal against her thigh.
Zeb,
she said again, urging him closer. He claimed her lips and body at the same time. Karis sucked in her breath at the pain as he took her purity from her. She knew he did not expect her to be a virgin. What she did not expect was for it to hurt quite so much. His tempo changed from undisciplined passion to gentle persuasion. Afterwards, he pulled her close against him, almost crushing her in an embrace, comforting and soothing her. The emotions of the last 24 hours, on top of 3 glasses of wine, and the physical trauma of her altercation with Brant Kinsey all contributed to her weariness, and she fell asleep to the sound of Zeb's heartbeat in her ear.
Nevermore will I wander, nevermore doubt divinity.
Zeb could not believe where his faith led him. Regardless of the reports on social media and her unsavory reputation, she was pure. He had been willing to sacrifice the most extraordinary gift from deity, the sensation of having a woman take his soul into her keeping, the chance to experience vicariously through that close connection what it was like to nurture a child from conception to birth. With thoughts of a child, his hand covered her abdomen, and he realized that, if the promises of Zacharias were to be believed, she would conceive a son. Their son. This extraordinary woman gave him the gift of herself, selflessly. Having felt what it meant to place his soul in her keeping, he now understood what he had been asked to willingly give up in light of the needs of his nation and his world. But, as his blessing stated, he had been rewarded for his willingness to make that sacrifice by having Karis take his soul, and show him the profound joy felt by those who came before him.
Body to the web, the exquisite pleasure of that virgin marriage bed.
Nico knew, somehow, that Karis was pure. He would ask the time-honored question, and he, Sebastiani Zakarian, would be able to answer honestly that his soul was in her keeping. The union would be sanctioned after the fact. He would not be denied his land or his religion. His true sacrifice was in not living in Estolia, a future he had known his entire life. He looked forward to the conversations he, his brothers and his uncle would have. He anticipated the marriage blessing they would receive would be powerful, perhaps giving some further clues as to how he would make a major difference on their beleaguered planet, a planet sick to its very soul of the pestilence of power hunger.
When with the song of my soul, the ceiling of my heart, I yielded up my soul to her, and safe she took it in her keeping. She took it in her keeping, when with my body to her way, the exquisite pleasure of that virgin marriage bed.